That joke is not funny.
Which one?
The first one.
Yeah,
It is
I like
funny.
the second one.
I don't get the second
I don't
one.
understand
What?
the second one.
Well,
I understand the second one. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get the first one.
So the gallbladder, so you can get gallstones, the people that frequently have gallstones have to have their gallbladder removed.
I don't know, I just like how
But
it says I
also,
have to get removed.
kidney stones are another thing that happens, another disorder of the urinary system.
And their
So
bladders.
So then they're giving
That's
them to
outrageous.
legally, he's giving them to somebody else, yeah.
Okay, I don't get the
Because
second one.
that's where kidney stones go. Kidney stones go to the bladder, then they come through the urethra. So anyway, yeah.
Can you explain the second one?
No, I cannot.
No.
Come on. I don't get it.
Well, I wasn't quite sure if
Jesus.
Oh,
I should put in there.
get it now.
You could
Can
just
someone
ignore it.
Explain it to me.
No.
Why would you put that on the slide?
I don't know. It's funny. I thought.
I don't get it.
Sorry.
What does that have to do with this?
Well,
I don't.
Can we look at excretion? All right. So this gets back to what Cormac asked earlier. So in my top right corner, so we talk about excretion, which is what this unit is about. Defecation, the removal of undigested solid waste from the body, is not excretion. Because when we talk about excretion, what we're talking about is the removal of what we call metabolic wastes. Okay? And metabolic wastes are waste products that are produced from metabolic processes, the breakdown, the synthesis of various materials. Many of those things produce byproducts that must be eliminated from the body because their buildup would be toxic to the organism. So excretion is getting rid of those toxins. So examples of things that need to be excreted, some amount of water, carbon dioxide, nitrogenous wastes, salts, all these things are eliminated through the excretory system. What's going on here? Whoa. So, nitrogenous wastes are pretty much the main one that we'll talk about here in this minute. So nitrogen is found in what major biological compound that we studied in biochemistry?
Protein.
Yeah, proteins. Okay? Proteins are made of amino acids, and they have nitrogen as one of their components. And that nitrogen, as it's released through the breakdown of amino acids and proteins, has to be removed from the body. And that nitrogen comes from this process called deamination. So you remember, what is the group attached to an amino acid that contains the nitrogen, sort of the subcomponent? Well, there's a carboxyl group on one side. What? The amino group, right? And that's where this comes from. Deamination is removal of that nitrogen section of an amino acid. So usually, amino acids are recycled and produce new proteins or rearrange the sequence of those amino acids to form new proteins. But sometimes those amino acids are broken down, okay, and digested. Sometimes if the body does not have enough carbohydrate or fats to provide energy for the organism will start breaking down proteins to provide energy. And when it does that, it produces large amounts of nitrogen. And that nitrogen needs to be eliminated if there's excess amino acids. So that nitrogen can be take several forms to be eliminated from the organism. And this table lists a few of those forms. Okay? So one way that nitrogen can sort of be packaged for removal from the organism is in the form of ammonia, NH3. Okay? And ammonia is actually very toxic. Okay? And so to remove that, it requires a lot of water. Now ammonia is soluble, very soluble in water, so it can be eliminated, but it takes a lot of water to do that. So a lot of times the organisms that rely on this ammonia as their means of getting rid of nitrogen are aquatic organisms because they are surrounded by water. So things like aquatic organisms, invertebrates, protists often release the nitrogen as ammonia because they're surrounded in water. So it's easy to do that. Other organisms convert ammonia into other nitrogen-containing compounds, like urea is an example. Okay? And urea comes about, it's produced by combining some ammonia and some carbon dioxide to form a less toxic compound, urea. That's less toxic, but again, it requires large amounts, I should say, of water. Here. And batteries on my pointer are not working. So these two should say require large amounts of water for removal. Urea is very soluble, and this is what mammals use for eliminating this nitrogen. Okay? Adult amphibians, earthworms, okay, and a few other land animals. But the difficulty with this is that it does require large amounts of water. So for organisms that are trying to conserve water, okay, this uses up a lot of that water to release the waste. Okay, and then the last type is uric acid. Uric acid is basically harmless, and so it's, but it's insoluble in water. Okay, it forms sort of crystals, and usually organisms that eliminate nitrogen through this uric acid eliminate it in their feces, so they don't produce urine. So if you think about birds, if you have like big bird dropping on your car when you're leaving for school, the white part of that, that's uric acid. That's the nitrogen waste from those birds. They release it as they remove waste. So that's another means of removing that nitrogen. Okay, humans produce some uric acid, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we talk about human excretion. But those are some of the ways of removing those nitrogen compounds from an organism. So if we talk about some of our organisms that we talk about with each system, protists, Monera, Hydra, okay, those organisms, basically, they release the nitrogen as ammonia, which basically just diffuses out of the cell. In plants, these waste products, most of them are recycled. You know, organisms can constantly convert one form of one type of compound into another using their metabolic pathways. So plants generally recycle most of the waste materials. Some of it can be stored in vacuoles. We're not going to talk much about plants and excretion. When we looked at earthworms the other day, you saw their excretory organs. And their excretory organs are the nephridia. This tiny little sort of tubules that were found in just about each body segment of the earthworm. Those are their excretory organs. They're kind of similar to kidneys and what they do and how they work. There's pairs of these nephridia in each segment. They're ciliated, they have cilia on them. So what they do is they draw in fluid from the coelom, filter out these waste products, and then excrete those through those pores through their skin. Along the way, capillaries reabsorb any useful materials. And what you're going to see is this is much like a human kidney works. We'll talk about that. The grasshoppers have special organs for excretion. They produce uric acid, which we just talked about. Forms a sort of crystallized compound. And they have special organs, and you can see them up here, along the digestive tract. They're called Malpighian tubules. And what type of circulatory system do grasshoppers have? Open. So waste products from their circulatory system move into those Malpighian tubules via diffusion or via active transport. And then those wastes are removed from that blood by these Malpighian tubules and released into the intestine. And then that waste is eliminated from the insect, from the grasshopper, through the anus as solid waste, similar to what birds do. And again, those Malpighian tubules recover some of that, some of the helpful, some of the useful substances from the blood. All right, we're going to save the human excretory system. We'll do that section tomorrow. I just want to get up to the grasshopper today. Any questions?